Have you ever found yourself staring at your phone, scrolling through content you don't even care about, only to realize 15 minutes have vanished and you can't remember a single thing you just watched? Have you ever tried to read a book, not a tweet, not a headline, an actual book, and felt your brain actively resist, like it was physically uncomfortable to follow a thought for more than 30 seconds? If that feels familiar, you're not alone. And here's the uncomfortable truth: it's not just you, it's all of us. What if I told you that society is quietly, steadily becoming less intelligent? That after decades of rising IQ scores, what scientists call the Flynn Effect, that trend has not only stopped but reversed? That your generation might be the first in modern history to be less cognitively capable than the one that came before it. But here's what makes this truly unsettling. We did this to ourselves, not through some external force, not through some inevitable decline, but through the very technologies and habits we've welcomed into our lives with open arms. Today on Mind Goals, we're going to explore why society is becoming more stupid every day, and more importantly, what you can do about it. The Flynn effect and its reversal. Let's start with some context. For most of the 20th century, human intelligence was on an upward trajectory. IQ scores rose steadily, about 3 to 5 points every decade. This was called the Flynn Effect, named after researcher James Flynn, who first documented it. Why were we getting smarter? Better nutrition, smaller family sizes, widespread access to education, good medicine, equality between men and women. The simple fact that life was demanding more of our brains, and our brains rose to meet that challenge. It was one of the great success stories of human progress. But something changed. Around the 1970s, that pattern began to reverse. Studies tracking men born from 1962 to 1991 found that IQ scores peaked in the 1970s and have since declined, despite an increase in national wealth. In Norway, Finland, and Denmark, the reversal has been clearly documented. In the United Kingdom, longitudinal analyses reveal a cumulative decline of up to 5 IQ points in verbal skills and structured reasoning among post-1970 cohorts. In the United States, studies by Northwestern University highlight pronounced deterioration in vocabulary, reading comprehension, and mathematical reasoning. Let me give you specific numbers. A 2023 psychology study found that adults aged 18 to 29 scored about 3 IQ points lower than peers tested 15 to 20 years earlier. The largest declines were in verbal comprehension and working memory. Analyses from 2023 to 2025 suggest declines of 2 to 4 IQ points in fluid intelligence and reasoning subtests compared with cohorts born in the 1970s and 1980s. Think about that. We have more technology, more information, more access to knowledge than any civilization in human history, and we're getting dumber. The question is, why? We're outsourcing our brains. The first answer is something researchers call cognitive offloading. Here's how it works. When you memorize something, a phone number, a math fact, a piece of historical knowledge, you're not just storing information. You're building neural architecture. You're strengthening the pathways in your brain that enable deeper reasoning, pattern recognition, and genuine understanding. But we've stopped doing that. When students never memorize math facts because they can always use a calculator, or when we just Google it instead of wrestling with information internally, we may be weakening the very cognitive foundations that enable advanced reasoning. The timing is telling. The cohorts showing declining IQ scores were precisely those educated when memorization was not just abandoned but actively demonized, and digital dependence took hold. Think about your own life. When was the last time you memorized something intentionally? A poem, a speech, a list of facts, Or do you rely on your phone to remember everything for you? Here's the neuroscience behind this. When we constantly offload thinking to calculators, smartphones, and AI, we're bypassing the brain's natural learning mechanisms. We're not just changing where information is stored, we're changing how our brains develop. The memory paradox research, published in the upcoming Springer Nature volume The Future of Artificial Intelligence, provides the first solid neuroscience-based explanation for why IQ scores have been declining for 50 years, even as technology has exploded around us. And it's not just about memory. A 2025 study in Frontiers in Human Neuroscience found that consuming short-form videos leads to a significant decline in cognitive function, attention, and self-control. People with a higher tendency towards short-form video addiction showed lower neural activity in the executive control network of the frontal lobe, the part of your brain responsible for planning, decision-making, and regulating emotions. You are literally rewiring your brain to be worse at thinking. Information overload. But there's a second, even more insidious reason: information overload. For most of human history, information was scarce. The civilizations that gathered, preserved, and transmitted data most effectively consistently outperformed those that did not. Our entire architecture of progress, from universities to corporate hierarchies, was built on the assumption that more information would naturally produce better outcomes. That assumption is now breaking. We generate more information in a single day than was produced over centuries of earlier history. We possess unprecedented analytical capacity, real-time data streams, and global connectivity. And yet, institutional trust, public cohesion, and shared understanding of basic facts appear strained rather than strengthened. Why? Because above a certain volume, additional information doesn't improve a system's grasp of its environment, it actively degrades it. Think about signal and noise. Signal is information that carries actionable meaning. Noise is information that doesn't. When noise grows faster than signal, a system's effective intelligence falls even as its total information base rises. This isn't a metaphor. It's a measurable property of any information processing system. Studies of expert decision-making across clinical diagnosis and financial trading consistently show that beyond a specific threshold, additional information induces cognitive overload, generates false confidence, and makes it impossible to weigh contradictory inputs correctly. Now add AI to the mix. Generative systems produce text, images, video, and synthetic data at a scale no prior technology has ever approached. A rapidly growing share of our information is machine-generated. Because these models mimic human fluency, each item looks credible. But a vast number are confidently wrong, devoid of context, or fabricated entirely. Distinguishing among them at speed is now beyond what most human readers can reliably do. We are drowning in information and starving for wisdom. We don't know what we don't know. And that brings us to the third reason. We have become dangerously unaware of our own ignorance. This is called the Dunning-Kruger effect. It's a cognitive bias in which people with less knowledge suffer from illusory superiority. They are as confident as those with the most expertise. People have no awareness of unknown unknowns. They fail to actively consider the limits of their knowledge, and their ignorance is veiled by false beliefs they assume to be true. As comedian Stephen Fry put it, the greatest enemy of knowledge is not ignorance, it is the illusion of knowledge. In our hyperabundant information environment, that illusion has never been stronger. We think we're informed because we scroll through headlines. We think we're educated because we watch YouTube videos. We think we understand complex issues because we read a Twitter thread. But we don't. We're confusing familiarity with understanding. We're mistaking access to information for actual knowledge. And here's the cruel irony. The more confident we become in our half-understood ideas, the less likely we are to seek out real expertise, to challenge ourselves, or to do the hard work of genuine learning. We're not just getting dumber, we're getting dumber and not realizing it. The solution: what you can do. Now I know what you might be thinking. This is depressing. This is hopeless. What can one person possibly do? Here's the good news. This decline isn't genetic. It isn't inevitable. It's environmental, and that means it's reversible. The research shows that the reversal of the Flynn effect is primarily attributed to environmental, social, and digital factors, not to genetic causes, which means you have agency. So here's what you can do, starting today. First, reclaim your attention. Put your phone in another room when you need to focus. Set boundaries on your screen time. The mere presence of your smartphone, even when you're not using it, can occupy limited cognitive resources and undercut your performance. College students now average 7 hours daily on mobile devices, with symptoms of poor concentration and mental cloudiness. You can do better. Second, read deeply. Not headlines, not tweets, not summaries. Real books, long-form articles, content that requires sustained attention and rewards it. Reading for leisure has declined sharply. In the U.S., only 37.6% of adults reported reading a novel or short story in 2022. Be part of the minority that still exercises this muscle. Third, memorize something, anything, a poem, a recipe, directions without GPS. Your brain is a muscle, and like any muscle, it atrophies when you don't use it. When you memorize, you're not just storing facts, you're building the neural architecture for deeper thinking. Fourth, embrace discomfort. Real learning is hard. It's supposed to be hard. When you wrestle with information internally instead of immediately Googling it, you're strengthening your cognitive foundations. Don't take the easy path every time. Fifth, be humble about what you don't know. The Dunning-Kruger effect thrives on overconfidence. Combat it by actively seeking out perspectives that challenge you, by asking questions, by admitting when you don't understand something. In conclusion, let me leave you with this. Neil Postman, in his book Amusing Ourselves to Death, contrasted two dystopian visions. George Orwell's 1984 warned that we would be oppressed by external forces, by censorship, by surveillance, by tyranny. But Aldous Huxley's Brave New World warned of something more insidious, that we would be oppressed by our own desires, by our addiction to entertainment, by our preference for pleasure over truth. Postman argued that Huxley's vision was more prophetic, that we would not need to be forced to abandon our intelligence. We would give it up willingly for the promise of endless distraction. 40 years later, that prophecy has never felt more true. We have more information than ever and less understanding. We have more connection than ever and less community. We have more technology than ever and less wisdom. But here's the thing, you are not powerless. The choice is yours. Every time you pick up a book instead of a phone, every time you memorize something instead of Googling it, every time you sit with a difficult thought instead of scrolling past it, you are pushing back. You are choosing to be intelligent in a world that rewards stupidity. That's not easy, but nothing worthwhile ever is. This has been Mind Goals. Thank you for listening, and more importantly, thank you for thinking.